So I did a quick short on this record that I worked on last year. It went #1 on iTunes in New Zealand. You guys seem to really enjoy that short, but it was only 60 seconds. We got into the vocal chain a little bit. I did what I could in 60 seconds, but I wanted to do a deeper dive, further breakdown of this whole mix and production. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Let's get right into it. So before we even get into this record, let me just play it for you guys before we go on a deep dive and really discuss it, just so you get a feel and a vibe for it and know where we're going here.
I don't wanna say goodbye. Don't ever wanna leave your side. You might really be my type. Don't ever wanna say goodbye. So please don't say goodbye. Please don't say goodbye.
So again, this artist is from New Zealand. Her name is Nouri. Name of the record is Say Goodbye. Produced by me and my boy Sam Koch. Big shout out to Sam Koch, former student, but went ahead and started his own label, man. I love his story. The label is called Happy Jack. I'm actually like repping the hat right now. But yeah, I want to just go into a deep dive on this record. And these are Amapiano vibes. Amapiano is another genre from Africa that's blowing up all over the world. I happen to love this style of music. Sam does too. We really discussed it before we finished this record. He sent me the production. As you can see here, the first track is kind of like a rough draft of the production. And then the vocals were recorded in Dubai. I don't know the engineer's name, but big shout out to the recording engineer. Those are the real MVPs sometimes, man, because if you get a great recording, get a great performance from the artist, it just makes my job, my life a lot easier. And that's what happened here. As soon as I got the stems for the vocals, I was like, oh, I got the stems for the beat. I got the stems from the vocal. And I was just like, this is going to be awesome, man. And I just did some editing here, some rearranging in the production, kind of helped Sam finish up the production, added a couple more elements here, did some filters. But we'll get into all of that. Let's just go over these elements one by one in the production. First and foremost, I usually start with my kicks, percussion, snares, things like that. Drums. I start with my drums. Put it that way. So let's go into the first element here is the kick. So I rolled off some bottom, rolled off some top. I just probably felt I didn't need that top, and then rolled off some bottom, trying to get this kick to work well with all the other drum percussion elements, all the low end. And then just did some like touch up EQ there. I did this. I did this mix like a year ago, so I honestly don't even remember why I added this additional filter. So just bypassing this EQ on and off. Kind of show you the difference that it makes. It's a little more controlled. Next element, this percussion element here. First thing I threw on there is CLA 3A for some compression, getting like -3 gain reduction here. I used one of the analog features as well. Warmed it up a little bit. Then I went into my API 550B. I saw Jason Joshua use this on a snare one time, and I tried it out, and I just love what it does to my snares and percussion and those type of elements. I just love the color of the API. So I've been doing that ever since. And then the last thing I did here is a transient widener from Waves. So all of these are actually Waves, all three of these plugins. CLA 3A, API 550. I love my Waves bundle. Then the transient widener. I'll show you the difference this makes. See how my transients are a lot more controlled. Smoothed out the mix, rounded it out, and that's what I was going for on this mix overall, because it's just a vibe, you know, just a consistent vibe. Very minimalistic, very warm, chill vibe. So I wanted to keep the mix that way too. The next percussion element here. And on these APIs, I just kind of like rolled off some bottom end here. Same thing here. Didn't do too much EQing. But on this percussion element, same thing, CLA 3A with that same analog. Let's see how much gain reduction we're getting here. Even less than -3. So that's just really like controlling it a little bit. Let's go into the next element. The next element is like this tom that goes into like a kind of like a reverse tom. I'm sure my boy Sam did some like sound design on this before he sent it. So it's just kind of like acts as like a fill pretty much. And same thing, just going through it here. I'm using the same CLA and then I'm using the same API, but instead this time, not only did I roll off some bottom to sit well with the other bass percussion elements, I'm kick. I popped out some mid-range and some top end to brighten it up. Probably to get that to cut through the mix a little more. So that's it. That's all our drums and percussion. There's some other elements that I added later on here in the bridge to the drum and percussion elements. Just a quick little snare right there just to like roll us back in. Same idea. CLA 3A, API. Probably I actually took down some high end there to kind of like warm it up a little bit. I think I felt it was a little too bright. And then we have a riser here. See what we did with this riser. So I put some spread on it. I love this plugin. Shout out to DJ Swivel. I use this a lot. So I monoed some of the mid-range, some of the low-end frequencies, and then the higher frequencies, I kind of open them up and spread them out. I discussed this in my book. If you guys haven't picked up the book yet, 4 Horsemen of Mixing and Music Production, it's available on Amazon. But I go into imaging and how I use imaging and monoing the lower end frequencies and spreading them out as we go up the frequency spectrum. So you'll see me do that in a couple elements here. I also believe I did do that on the bass line. So this is the EQ that I did on the riser. A little extreme EQing. I didn't need much from the riser, you know, it's just sitting on top just to like bring us into the next part of the arrangement. And then it slams us into this little crash that I added. And the crash, I just did some EQing and some saturation to warm it up. Again, everything in this mix is nice, warm, and smooth. And we didn't even go into the bass yet. So let's go into the bass last. Where's my bass line here? So bass line. First thing I throw on my bass line is the SSL. Cutting it at about 37. High end, I'm cutting at 8K. That's warming it up, controlling it. Maybe 3 to 6 dB gain reduction. Let's control it a little bit. I believe I did do a tiny bit of touch-up EQ here on my 4 bands. And that's the gist of our groove here. We went through the whole groove. Next thing is the main chords. Main chord, I just did some EQing, rolled off some bottom end, boosted some upper mids, did a little tiny bit of high shelf just to get it to cut through the mix a little more. You want that, those are the full chords. You want that to sit right on top. And this is a trick I use for synths all the time. Not necessarily a trick, but I'm accustomed to doing this. I use my little ultra maximizer. So I guess it's to just pop out of the mix a little more. And then I just believe I did some subtractive EQ here. Just to sit in the groove a little more. Cleaned up a little more frequencies. So we got a nice, really smooth groove going the entire time here. Just from the beginning, it kind of comes on like this. And that's what we were looking for. So we achieved that. And then the last thing I did, I always do on my drums, my parallel compression bus here. Slamming some parallel compression. So that's bus 9 and 10. So all our drum elements are going into that bus. And then 13 and 14, I believe, is our drum reverb. So I'll show you what reverb I use there. So the reverb that I use on the drums is the plate. This is just a Pro Tools stock plate here. Small little Pro Tools stock plate. Like 54% between dry and wet. You'll see that really like pop out here when I did the snare. So let's just solo the snare here. And if we mute this verb, you'll see the difference. So I just did that on some drum elements. And that's our whole groove. So let's just dive right into the vocals. And before we even play this vocal again, big shout out to the recording engineer. Shout out to Nouri, gave a great performance. So this was recorded out in Dubai, and then he sent me the stems, and they just did a great job. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, this is gonna be easy, you know. Makes my life easier when you're working with good producers, great recording engineers, great artists. They just send me these stems, and then I could just do my thing with them, you know. And I want to play this vocal raw for you, even without the auto-tune. The auto-tune wasn't even necessary. As you can see, I didn't put that much on, but let me just bypass the auto-tune. And this is just the dry vocal.
You don't find this type of love twice. No lie, I never wanna roll the dice.
So that's just the dry vocal. Again, nice, clean, balance controlled recording. I added tune to her for some vibe. Not necessarily that she needed it, but
you don't
just adds to the vibe a little
type
bit.
of love twice.
We're getting a tiny bit of tone here.
Lie,
and then I did this reverb. If you're noticing the reverse reverb going into the vocal, that I just do that. I love doing this in Pro Tools because it's pretty much like a quick little one-step process here. You just go into the reverb, deverb, and if you want to just highlight the area that you want the reverb to go to, I usually just kind of go to like this big hall, large hall here, and then you just push reverse. You see how it kind of just prints it? That's kind of what I did there. And then you could just do some editing. Then I turned it up, you know, there's some little gain there. So I just made that from scratch, and it just rolls right into the vocal really smooth. Again, this whole mix is smooth groove, smooth vibe, warm. So that I think that just adds to the overall vision. And as you'll see throughout these like tutorials that I'm very like minimalist and unorthodox. And the reason I feel I'm both of those things is because I just really give the record what it needs, man. I don't have like a template in mind. I don't have certain plugins I need to use. I just give the record what it needs. And I want you guys to kind of get into that mindset too. You'll find yourself racking your brain a lot less, doing a lot less work, and getting better results with doing less. The first thing I have here on the vocal chain is my Soothe 2. I love Soothe 2, big time saver.
You don't find this type of love.
See how that already helped warm up the vocal, round it out, because we handled some sibilance instead of going in there and doing some subtractive EQ and doing everything manually. This helps you to work a lot faster. Then same thing with C4. Multi-band compressor.
Don't find this type of love.
That's controlling your frequencies too. Then I rolled off some bottom. See, our vocals already a lot cleaner.
I won't ever cross.
Next thing is Renaissance compressor. If you notice that big delay I'm doing at the end of certain vocals, we're gonna dive into that real quick too, because I made that delay pretty custom. Actually, let's go to that now before we continue with the rest of our vocal chain here. So here we go. As you can see, it's being bussed to 11 and 12. And here I am doing a format. Then the delay that I'm using is the waves stock here. Then the next thing I'm doing is rolling off some of the bottom end frequencies because we just don't need it. Just wanted the delay to be a little thinner. And then the last thing I'm doing is pan man, left to right. So if you look at our mixer here. So format pitch down, here's our delay. Then rolling off some bottom, and then pan man, left to right. Pan man from Sound Toys. I love my Sound Toys bundle. So let's go back into the rest of the vocal chain. So the next thing we're handling here is some sibilance. Then my mag EQ is giving us some top here, some air, and then I add some additional air. I'm just kind of like going crazy with my favorite plugins here. But and again, not going crazy. I'm just giving it what it needs, man. I'm just going by vibe here, right? No rules. It's kind of just unorthodox, minimalist. I don't think I went too crazy. We just have 2 more plugins here on the overall vocal chain. And this is a free plugin. Be careful with Fresh Air. If you go too crazy with it, it can get a little harsh. But as you can see, I didn't go too crazy with it here. just giving it some high sparkle and a little mid presence. Then the last thing is some Kramer tape.
Promise you won't make me cry. Crush your heart and hope to.
And here we're already at my destination. And then I add some reverb, some delay. Let's go into those. The reverb that I'm using, of course, is the Valhalla Vintage Verb. I did roll off a lot of bottom there. I could have did that right on the Vintage Verb, right here on my low cut, but I just pro Q, probably just did it really quick. Wasn't really thinking about it. H delay, same thing. Both of these, Vintage Verb is like a 70s Vintage Verb. So it gives me kind of like a warmer feel, and it's what we're on the plate here. And then my H delay is like an analog delay. Again, warm, whole mix, warm, round, smooth, right? Vibey. So we continue with that vibe. And then the last thing here is my parallel bus. I'll bypass.
Promise you won't break my heart. Say we'll never be apart.
And the compressor I'm using for that there is the API 2500. In case that adds any additional sibilance. We don't want any harshness. We want to keep that warm, round, smooth feel. And then the last thing I did here, see a lot of people doing this on vocals now. It's just something that I do all the time. But we do the doubler. And that's really just addressing mid-range frequencies because we're filtering out the rest of these frequencies. And then again, the sibilance at the end. So we're widening the mid-range frequencies there on the vocal. And then that's it. That's my entire vocal chain. Then as you can see on the backgrounds, the ad-libs and backgrounds, I kind of did the same thing. They go through a similar chain just without the parallel compression bus. I usually only do the parallel compression on my lead vocal because I want that big fat lead down the middle. What I did do differently on the ad-libs and the backgrounds was this S1 imager here. Just to widen, spread out the ad-libs and the leads, move them out the way a little bit when I got my big fat lead down the center again. So that's the majority of the mix here. If not, that is the whole mix pretty much. So let's see how this whole thing sounds in the end. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but this is a trick I learned in EDM. Again, my whole approach is kind of like unorthodox here, but I mix right into the L2 just to give me a vibe of like what the limiter, the master might sound like already. And that's just when I was mixing and producing a lot of dance, EDM, house music. That's just like a trick, a quick little trick that I learned. We kind of like mix right into the master pretty much. But here I just put like an L2 just to give me a vibe for what the master would feel like. It's going to be a little loud, but I'll play it with the L2.
Promise you won't break my heart. Say we'll never be apart. Cause you already left your mark on. Promise you won't make me cry. Crush your heart and hope to die. Cause this love you can't ever buy. I don't wanna say goodbye. Don't ever wanna.
So there you go. I was jamming in here, rocking out. Got the vibe, the nice warm round feel I wanted to go for. I hope I went through everything here correctly. I believe I went through the riser. I went through these like little additional production elements that I did. Then other than that, I just did like some little automation here, some filtering in Pro Tools. I don't normally do my productions in Pro Tools, but since I already had the stems, I just kind of like finalized the production here. We did go over this riser and the spread. I don't know if we went over the one knob, but this is like a pumper sidechain effect from Waves that I did on the riser. And that's it. That's the gist of our whole production here. Hope you guys enjoyed that and learned something. Don't forget to subscribe, like. If you have any further questions, leave them in the comments, please. I'll be getting to all of those questions. And if there's still things you're getting stuck on when it comes to mixing and music production, excited to say, I finished my first book, 4 Horsemen of Mixing and Music Production. This will be available on Amazon. And this is not DAW specific either. It doesn't matter if you have FL, It doesn't matter if you have Logic Pro. It doesn't matter if you have Pro Tools, Ableton. This is just about understanding some basic fundamentals in mixing and music production. I hope this really helps you guys out. And if you pick it up on Amazon, don't forget to leave the comments. Let me know how you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next time. Coast to Coast TV.